Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Danny, and today Grit.com talks with Numsa Mithali, the patient community and rare assist managers for Rare Diseases South Africa. If you haven't heard of it, Rare Diseases South Africa, or RDSA, is a nonprofit organization committed to improving the lives of individuals affected by rare diseases and congenital disorders. Before we begin, remember if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Hi, Numsa, and welcome.
Hello, my darling Danny. Thank you for having me. Such a great pleasure for you to invite us here. Really appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually super happy and excited for this talk that
Me
we're going
too.
to have
Me
today.
too. Me too.
I always like to know more about uh,
Mm-hmm.
very specific things, right, that happen to
Yes.
people. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of crazy sometimes. I don't think we know enough about how many rare and different diseases there are and how they actually affect people's lives. I believe
Yes.
we had like this big scare with COVID, and
Yeah.
it's the most recent thing that we have that showed us we need to take more care of our health. But there are people battling with things, with conditions, with
Yeah.
diseases
Yeah.
that are
Mm-hmm.
just, I'm not just going to say life threatening, but they, life impairing sometimes, I believe. So I think
Yeah.
this is going to be a good opportunity to educate ourselves, educate myself as well in this.
Yes.
And let's begin with the first thing that I always go for, that it's history,
Mm-hmm.
right? You guys have been doing this
Mm-hmm.
for a while. So how
Yes.
did it all begin, and how have you evolved, in your mission throughout the years?
Yes. I actually like the fact that you mentioned COVID and how tough it was and the strain it had put on a lot of people, because in reality, this is how some of our patients live. They're always masked, particularly because some of them have autoimmune diseases. So I like the fact that you went back to COVID, because a lot of people used to judge somebody who's on a mask. It was always like bizarre. But COVID actually kind of grounded a lot of people into understanding what rare patients go through on a daily basis. And I like that. And to go back to your question and how it was started, actually, what's exciting is that this is our 10th year. This month, this month, we celebrated 10 years of Rare Diseases South Africa. So it's very exciting. So Rare Disease South Africa was started from a personal need. It came from a personal need. Our CEO, Kelly Duplessis, had a little boy, and when he was 8 months old, he was diagnosed with something called Pompe disease, and it's a lysosomal storage disorder. So he needed enzyme replacement therapy, and the family was told that there's no treatment available in South Africa. There's no way he's gonna make it, and at this time he he was not growing fully as a child. He was not developing his development. He had developmental delays. He was not going anywhere, and the only solution to the family was, well, I'm sorry, it's a rare disease, but there's no treatment. And she felt like there are parents like me, there are families who are in desperate need of help like me. And then she started advocating for her little man, and she managed to get treatment into South Africa for her son, and she just wanted a place of belonging, and then she started rare diseases as a form of a herd for other parents, for other patients who are going through very tough times and cannot advocate for themselves. And then when she did that, she also taught other parents how to advocate for their little ones. And it came from a personal need. And from then we've grown into this organization that we are, because we've helped so many patients and we still continue to do it. And we do a level based. Our community is not that big, but it's very large, particularly because we for as a fact, 1 in every 15 people is affected with a rare disease by a rare disease, either impacted or affected. So when you look at it like that, in a game of rugby, you had 15 players on the ground, and either one of them will be either infected or affected by a rare disease. So it's a very large number when you look at it like that. It's a very, very large number because somebody might know someone with a rare disease, or they themselves might be actually impacted by a rare disease. So we've tried to do our level best to actually accommodate these families and just be there for them, be their place of belonging, be a community for them. So we have a very large but not so large community of patients and caregivers and siblings. And here's the thing also with rare diseases, it's not about the patient. It doesn't stop there. It involves the families, it involves the caregivers, it involves the siblings, which break my heart a lot. The siblings always I feel like they're glass kids. You know, like a glass, you just hold it there and leave it there. You don't really regularly use a glass majority of the time, though those fancy glasses. So I call them glass kids because, in all honesty, the parents will always try to keep the one child alive, but this one child who takes care of the other ones. I'm not taking anything away from the parents, but it's the reality of living with a rare disease patient. So it doesn't really stop with the patient, but it continues. It's a journey because majority of rare diseases there's no cure, and some of them don't have treatment. So it's a journey. And also it takes a village. So we are a village.
Wow, and I think it's so important that you say this, you mention this effect that it has, right? Because sometimes we tend to forget there are
Yes.
other people involved other than
Yes.
the patients, right? And in this case, I completely sympathize with the parents because it must be like such a
Very tough.
complex situation because you just don't know what to
Yes.
do, right?
Yeah.
If we know if your kid has a flu, it's scary, but you kind of know how to take care of
That's a
him or
help.
her,
Yeah.
right?
That's a
You
help.
know where to go. But when it's something so crazy or something so rare, it must be
When you
really
don't even have access to the healthcare systems as well are not so great, and you don't have access to treatment, you don't have access to you would know a parent would the child would have a rare disease, and you would know that maybe in Brazil, for as an example, in Brazil they do have treatment for this disease, but it's not allowed to be in South Africa because clinically has not proven that it can work. And it's unfair. Like knowing that there's something that can save your child's life, but you cannot access it. I think that's what's tough.
wow.
It's a very tough world.
Absolutely. And thinking about this, since you mentioned it, what exactly qualifies a disease as a rare disease? Is either the number of people that have this or the fact that we don't like have established treatment for the condition?
Rare diseases are classified by a number of people.
Mhm.
So if it's one in every 2,000 people, so it will be classified as a rare disease. So also that's a large number because 2,000 people are not a lot of people. Because if you have 5 million people in South Africa, as an example, and then two people are have a rare disease, so that's a very large number when you look at it like that. So what classifies a rare disease is the number that amongst how many number of people, like 1 in 15, every 1 in 15 people would either be impacted or affected by rare disease. So that also brings it back to saying, okay, a number would classify a rare disease. And some of these rare diseases, because in the world, we have about 7,000 rare diseases. But with this 7,000 rare diseases, you still have undiagnosed, the ones that have not been named or labeled. So they still fall as undiagnosed, but undiagnosed because they don't know the name of the disease. Because this patient is showing symptoms of this, but it's not that. They've been tested for everything, but they still don't have it. So there is a rare disease that exists in this patient, but because it's undiagnosed, so it's unknown. So it falls onto that. So we'll just probably say plus or minus 7, because you still have those ones that are undiagnosed, which is very tough. You can just imagine being extremely sick, but you don't know what's wrong. Going through so many tests and hospital days, but nothing is getting better. That's really, really tough.
Wow, I honestly I cannot imagine what that feels like, and
Yeah.
especially again for the relatives and for the family that's
The
around this
families.
person, and
I don't know
it,
if I'm allowed to tell you a little bit of story I had today this morning. So I get a call from a mom. The little girl has what we call Prader-Willi syndrome, right? And with Prader-Willi syndrome, something in their brain does not tell them that they're full. So they eat a lot. And if they don't get food, so their parents, as a measure of safety for them, they'd lock up the cupboards, the fridges, they're not allowed to access food. So now because they're so hungry, they eat a lot, so they become obese. And this then messes up their organs because the other ones get bigger. I mean, as a you can imagine a 7-year-old being obese, but not because they want to, but because of they eat a lot, but not because they want to eat a lot, but because of the disease that they have. And she calls me around 10 and she's like, Noms, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And I said to her, what's wrong? She was like, the school just called me. I must come fetch my daughter. She says to me, Noms, I sent her to school with 3 lunch boxes. It's 10 o'clock now. They're asking me to come fetch her because she's starting to steal other children's food because she's still hungry in her mind. And my heart broke for this mom because she was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so exhausted. I, and how do you tell her to stop caring for her child? You can't. How do you, and also the society, because they don't know what these patients are going through, they'll always assume, oh, this mom does not know how to treat her child because her child does not get food. The child is obese, unaware of the situations or the circumstances that the family is currently going through. That's why Danielle always say, in a world where you can choose anything else, choose to be kind. That's that I live by it. Where you can
Yeah,
choose to be anything else, choose to be kind.
I think that's really the motto, honestly. Like, we never know what people are going through, right? And
Yes.
I tend
Yes.
to believe that if you need to resort to this kind of extreme measures of locking your kitchen cabinet, for instance,
I know.
something so serious must be going on, and
I
and the
know.
mental weight in this family, like,
You
it,
know, it's a lot.
it's
It's a
tough.
lot. It's
Yeah.
tough.
And using this, since you brought this story, thank you for sharing
Mhm.
that actually. But using this as an example, help us understand how you guys at Rare Disease can help this family, for instance, to go through this. Because we are talking about a very specific situation, but I believe that
Yes.
it goes through you in different ways, right?
Yes. Yeah. 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 Because also, all right, with a situation like this, sometimes they get misdiagnosed. The patients get misdiagnosed, and sometimes they get diagnosed but told, go home and get your child into a better diet. But how do you then get your child into a better diet when they eat everything that's in their possession? Because they open the fridge, they come across a yogurt, they're gonna eat it, everything, because they don't get full. It's what they have in their body. And for us as an organization, the first thing we did was to help the mom, get the mom into counseling, get the mom into counseling so just she can go through her feelings. She can realize that she's also very important. As much as it's important, it's imperative to ensure that her child is in a good place. It's also imperative to make sure that the caregiver is in a good place because you cannot fill from an empty cup. Just take care of the needs of the mom. So this will then fuel her to also be able to fill from the cup to her child. And also we ensure that the rest of the family members also go through counseling. They get that. And if it's a newly diagnosed patient, we'll obviously take them through genetic counseling, and from genetic counseling to genetic testing so that they have a better understanding of the disease than what they'll get from Dr. Google, for instance. They have a better understanding of the disease and how deep it's going to get, because sometimes healthcare professionals, unfortunately, some of them are in it for the money. And then you get those ones that are in it for the love of it, for the passion of wanting to help patients and are patient centric. Some of them would be like, oh, okay, no, you have this and that's it. This is You have 2 months to live with this person. And then you get those ones that are actually invested in showing that as much as what we do as an organization, our motto as an organization is as much as a patient lives with a rare disease, it is our duty to ensure that they get a certain standard quality of life. They deserve it. they deserve a certain standard quality of life. So we ensure that a patient gets to have quality of life, irrespective of them not having long enough to live. It's okay. But within that period, within that 7 months that they're left with, we want to ensure that they have a quality of life. It's okay to do that. So that's what we do as an organization. We ensure that patients have a certain quality of life. Like if with this patient, I had to make a few phone calls and be like, can we get this little girl into feeding? Because also the reason I will get the patient into feeding, it's because sometimes when they don't get food, they self-harm. So they must always have something. They self-harm. They'll throw themselves against the wall. Imagine an 8-year-old going through that. It's very tough. It's extremely very tough. They'll self-harm. So as an organization, this is when we jump in terms of advocacy. We'd advocate for this patient to ensure that there is something, an alternative that won't make them gain as much weight um, that they would currently be on when it comes to them eating a lot. This is what we will do as an organization, and give them, the family, some love and support. Put them into a support group with people that are on the same journey, with the other parents that are on the same journey, so that it makes it a little bit easier belonging into a herd than being on your own. It makes your journey look a little bit lighter than being on your own, because once you're on your own, you feel like the walls are closing in on you. But when you have a place of belonging, you belong there. You know that other parents are also going through this, and it's okay. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I can take a break. And that is why we are trying so hard to get funding to get respite care for our rare community, so that we can just have respite care for these caregivers. A mom can come and drop off their child. We'll take care of the child. She goes for a movie, 2 hours of her own time, and just recoup and re-energize and come back stronger. You're not saying escape from reality, but take a break. You deserve it. You work hard. So yeah, that's what we do.
No, it's actually beautiful to see, because I see here the 4 pillars that you have, right? If we think about it,
Yes.
on advocacy,
Yeah.
research, and the engagement, the community, and helping people
Yeah.
navigate the situation. So
Yes.
it's really a
Literally our
comprehensive
pillars.
approach, and I think this kind of work, it's really vital to help people process what's going on. And I love that you
Yes.
mentioned that the fact that the parents, the caregivers, they need a break. It's
They
not
do.
really a escape, but it's
Yes.
about
It's just like a
remembering that
break.
you need to have a full cup, or at least a halfway
Yes.
full, so you
I
can feed
know,
someone
yes.
else.
Half full, not half empty, half full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
necessary to have this mindset. So it's wonderful to see how you guys are doing it, and thinking about this advocating role that you guys have.
Yes.
I wonder here about some partnerships, and what are the approaches that you guys are able to or are choosing to do, because we were talking about a very specific
Mm-hmm.
situation here, but I
Yes.
would like to think from the other examples that you brought to us, like people in the healthcare system that are not so reliable, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
fighting for rights that these patients and these
Yes.
families have. Because I'm gonna think here of a random situation, right? If I were to
Mm-hmm.
have a kid, and this kid had,
Yes.
we found out that it has a rare disease, for
Reservations.
instance, I
Mm-hmm.
would need to leave my job,
Yes, they do.
right?
They do.
We would need to change our lives to accommodate
Mm-hmm.
that. So I would
Yes.
would need certain um, help, I would say, from maybe from government,
Yes.
from other institutions. So this kind of leads me to think on the rights that these families and patients are fighting for. So
Mm-hmm.
could you help us understand better this advocating role, actually, this advocating role?
It's look, man, Danny, it's so tough, eh? It's honestly very, very tough. Um, so in terms of advocacy, we focus on we have pillars also in terms of advocacy, because we try and get policies done for rare disease patients. Because I'll make an example with cancer, everybody's just cancer bespoke. Cancer is known, but with rare diseases, it's extremely difficult, because also the drugs for rare disease to treat rare diseases are extremely expensive, So you can imagine for a family who have a child, let's say fish syndrome, or let's say intracranial hypertension, and they need a shunt. The patient needs a shunt. The patient needs to be on a proper diet, but this family is not even on medical aid. There's nothing medical aid related that can help. So they obviously need to be a state patient. And our state resources are not really so great. So it becomes a challenge for the family. And now they get to a point where they need to fundraise for themselves. But as an organization, what we do in terms of advocating for this patient, would start by ensuring that this patient gets onto treatment. We fight a lot, either with private institutions or with we fight a lot at no cost to the patient. With that said, the patient doesn't have to pay anything because we're an NPO. So we advocate for the patient to actually get access to treatment. Like I mentioned earlier, quality of life. Patients deserve a quality of life, like everybody else. I mean, it's within your right as an individual to actually have a quality of life. To have life, you deserve it. Everybody does, you know. So we get to a point where, in our advocacy ways, we would ensure that the patient has access to treatment. Some of the patients would need transportation to move from and to their infusions, because some of the patients would have treatment every week and they would need transportation for that. This is where we jump in as an organization, with the help of donors, obviously, because you'd have people that are donating privately, we'd have people that are donating monthly. Like whatever cent that we can to spare to the patient, we try and just stretch it very far, to accommodate a lot of other patients that are unable to do these themselves. And also, in terms of advocacy, it gets as deep as going to court, where the state is like, yeah, well, but this patient won't die until they're 20. The disease won't progress until this patient is 20. But what are you saying? Are you putting a price tag on a person? Is that fair? You know? And also, in their defense, they don't want to set precedents, because once they set precedents, NOMSA has been diagnosed, let's say, with EDS, and then we approve NOMSA's treatment for EDS. Oh, well, now Danny's going to come and be like, you approved for NOMSA, why not me? You know, they don't want to set that precedence of having to pay for everybody. So it becomes a point of them like, no, they decline. No, we're not going to pay for that. It's expensive. And everybody must just live with that. But this is what we're against for as an organization. We're against that. Like, don't put a price tag on a human being. Let's give everybody a chance to live. You know, let's give everybody a chance to live. If we can do it, if we have the means of doing it, we'll do it. And we'll also try in terms of fundraising. Some of the families would come to us to assist them in terms of fundraising, for that specific disease that the family has. But when we fundraise as organization, when we do a fundraising as organization, we are fundraising for the organization as a whole. We don't focus on one disease, particularly because it's unfair. I cannot fundraise for my disease. What happens to yours? You know what I'm saying? So it's unfair. So we fundraise for the whole organization, for all rare diseases patients. If one patient is in need of transportation or funds to move from one place to the other, that funding that we received from our fundraiser would go towards that patient. And if that other patient they need groceries, the family needs groceries, we'd pay towards that. So we don't focus on specifically on one disease, but would fundraise for a whole lot of other diseases. However, if a family is strong enough and they believe that they can do it, they want to do a fundraising and they need our help, we can definitely do that. We can assist. You know, so that's how we go about in terms of advocacy.
What a massive work you guys are doing,
We're trying.
help to improve this situation, the whole context. This is amazing. But now, Numsa, trying to look at it into this other perspective that we've been talking about, right? So you said that you guys are celebrating 10 years. Amazing.
Yes, yes, 10 years this month, 10 years.
That's incredible. But looking to the future, what are the next steps for rare diseases? What you guys want to do on the next years to come?
Sure, we have a lot of things that we would like to do. Looking into the future, we would like to ensure that we have enough genetic counselors in South Africa who are focused on rare diseases. Also, employment is a bit of a problem. You'd have genetic counselors studying, and when it comes to employment for them, it doesn't really happen. So they move abroad to offer their genetic counseling sessions, like some sessions internationally. And then we are putting together a policy document for rare diseases as a whole to ensure that to ensure that the unmet needs of our patients actually met, because it's a lot of unmet needs. A lot of patients are dismissed because they get told. I would always say nobody would ever know a disease than a patient who lives with the disease. So a doctor might think, that's why I call my rare disease patients zebras. They are my zebras. They are my zebras. Because I feel like doctors are taught to find horses and not zebras. So zebras are rare to find, but you can get a horse very, very quickly. So they're always taught to find a horse and not a zebra. And when they eventually find a zebra, the relationship just ends there, and that's it. The zebra must just go see now, and it makes it very tough. It makes it very tough. So we are putting together a policy document that will ensure that patients' unmet needs are met. We also, for our organization as a whole, if we could get funding, we're also looking for respite care for our caregivers. We recently just had a sibling camp for our siblings, just to give them a little bit of normality, just a weekend away of normality out of their everyday lives of having to live with a sibling. And I'll tell you what prompted us to actually focus more on our siblings. One of the parents gave us a call and said her 9-year-old little boy told the cousin that he wants to kill himself because the mother doesn't love him. The mother loves the little brother who has a rare disease. And we actually saw that there's a gap here. There is a massive, massive gap of young kids feeling overwhelmed and unloved by their parents, but merely because their parents want to keep the other child alive. So we've recently had that, and we would love to also for the future to also have a program that accommodates teenagers as well. When you get into teenagehood with a rare disease, it's very tough. It's very, 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 very tough. We want to do that as well. As an organization, we also want to ensure that we have enough counselors for our patients, because they go through the most. Like, we do have volunteers, therapists, um, but it's not enough. We would love to have enough because, for example, with patients that have fish syndrome, those patients, because they smell like fish, they never go anywhere. They isolate a lot, and then they eventually have anxiety, and then it's depression, and then it becomes a whole thing, and then it eventually leads ends with a schizophrenia. So those patients, they're in serious, extremely serious demand of counseling and therapy. So the resources we currently have, I would focus them on those families, on those patients, forgetting that there's also other patients on the other side that I actually need. So for the future, we are looking into that, and we would love to get more collaborations, more corporates involved in what we do, so we can do activations. We have a project called Lubanzi Project to Go. This project is aimed at finding patients. We believe that there's a lot of patients, because of cultural differences in South Africa. Majority of our patients, it's a matter of the first instinct is to go find a traditional healer. In the villages, we are trying to maneuver into the villages, get deep into the villages, find those patients that are in the villages that are seeing traditional healers, just so we can work closely with traditional healers and explain it to them. Like, in terms of, I'll make an example for there's a Xhosa tradition in South Africa, right? All men need to go for initiation at the mountain, and when they go for initiation, this is how they get circumcised, right? In the mountains, and it's being done by a traditional healer. But what we're trying to bring about is that when they do that traditional stuff, we're not taking that away. We were actually, it's fine. It's what they believe in. You cannot, yeah, it's what they believe in. But what we're trying to do in terms of us collaborating with traditional healers South Africa is it's actually inform them that if they go on initiation, we have something called hemophilia. If they have hemophilia, because they lose a lot of blood there. So that's the information we're trying to say. Like, we're not taking anything away traditionally, but why don't you look into things differently and don't let a traditional healer circumcise them? Rather, take them to a hospital, let them circumcise there, and then take them back to the mountain and finish initiating. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're hoping to achieve in the next coming 5 years. Just and find these patients that are in the rural villages, in the outskirts of like, try and find these patients, because it also comes with a whole lot of denial. If a patient has been we had a situation where a patient was diagnosed and they used to hide this little baby until a lot of people found out when he passed away, because the grandmother used to hide him from everybody because she was going to be called a witch, because she gave birth because she gave her daughter gave birth to a child that was very short. But the little baby had MPS, so there was no way he was going to grow or develop. It's because of the disease. But because they're in the rural areas, they don't have access to information. They don't have nothing. If they see a child that's different, in the first instinct will be, no, this is witchcraft. This is witchcraft, and that's it, nothing else. So we're trying to change their minds and bring them about education. So that's what we're hoping to achieve. Build relationships where we can find patients and actually advocate for patients together and form alliances. That's what we're hoping to achieve in the next coming 5 to 10 years.
There's still a lot of ground to conquer, right?
But
You
I
have
know,
been
I know.
advancing so much, but you guys are doing a beautiful, beautiful job
We
on
try.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love the way you bring these new perspectives, because it takes into consideration cultural
Yes.
aspect as well, right? So it's about
Yeah.
knowing how and when to do things, to
Yes.
advance things. So this is really quite sensible, I would say. And thinking of this, I believe that the best question I can ask right now is our final one. That is, how can everyone listening or watching us right now uh, can help you keep going, can get involved with rare diseases?
Ah, as like I said literally a few minutes ago, that we're looking for collaborations with other organizations or individuals that are willing to help in any way. We appreciate anything, even if it's in a form of food. There are those families, we would appreciate anything in a form of a donation. We would really appreciate it, and anyone can just go into our website. Our website has everything. Whether you want to see patient stories, what our patients go through, what we do as an organization. We even have a calendar for our awareness days. Our website is information packed. Can go into www.rarediseasessouthafrica.co.za, and that's it. Rarediseases.co.za.
Perfect. We're going to add the link to your page in the description of this
Yeah,
episode so people can
yeah.
easily access. There will be no
Access our website.
excuses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I swear, our website is information packed. And also, whilst on the same breath of trying to find patients, if anyone is watching or anyone is listening, and they're a bit concerned of their loved one having this and this and this and that, like on this fish syndrome support group that we have, because we have about 120 support groups for different diseases. So we try and bring these patients together for them to be a family, and this support group for Timau fish syndrome, we have people from New York, because they don't have support groups where they come from, so they come to South Africa. We have people from there, so anyway in the world that you are, we are able to assist you. If we are in a position where we need to refer you or direct you to your country, or who can help, we have those resources. We have those relationships that we've built it in terms of the healthcare system, even from afar. So we can. So anyone who needs to get in touch, they can definitely get in touch.
Thank you so much, Nimsa, for joining us today. I loved this conversation. I learned a lot, and I believe everyone
I'm glad.
that got with us today also learned a lot. Thank you.
I'm glad. Thank you very, very much for having me.
It was a pleasure. And for everyone else listening or watching us on YouTube right now, thank you also for staying with us for this more episode. And remember, if you enjoyed it, press subscribe on YouTube or in a podcast app. Share with your friends, share with everyone that you know, because that shows the algorithms that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of rare diseases South Africa. Go check their page, get involved if you can, and I see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.